All right.
Go for it.
This is Artist Moving. We're with political artist Diego Marcial Rios. Welcome.
Oh, hi, how are you doing?
Thank you. This will be edited, so don't worry.
Yeah.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
Do all you
right.
can.
So we're going to just start. We ask this to all our interviews. What does art mean to you?
Art is communication, and art is documentation, and art is growth as well. And art is also an expression of change. That's my interpretation of what art is. But primarily, I would say art is communication. If art fails to communicate, I think it fails as an art piece.
Wow. Okay.
And then let's go into your definition of political art, because you are a political artist.
Political art to me is artwork in any dimension, either the two-dimensional, three-dimensional, whatnot, that is social critical or critical towards the current society. That's a Marxist perspective. That's my perspective towards art. Or art that is aware or brings the awareness of your position in society and the wrongs in society, and periodically how to right those wrongs. But that depends on the particular type of work that you're doing.
Okay.
Do you consider yourself a political artist?
Absolutely, I'm a political artist. All my work has to do with some sort of social critique of some sort. It makes it important for me that gives me a reason to produce it. If I don't have that reason or justification, I won't produce it.
You were talking about how spirituality is important
Most
in
certainly.
your political work. Can we talk about that?
Well, this is a big difference between me and Susan Coe and a number of
Right.
the other political artists. Susan Coe, who I met, had an argument with her. In fact, I used to argue a lot with political artists.
Right.
A lot of them are agnostics and atheists.
Right.
I'm probably the only one that isn't. I'm probably what a lot of them term nouveau. They gave me what is the term they gave me? Nouveau socialist or something like that.
Socialist.
What they've taken into consideration is my work takes an extremely strong social critical posture, yet I have a deep belief in spirituality and God. That's the big difference between me and a Susan
Wow.
Coe, for example.
Yeah.
For example, I met Susan Coe when I was about 21 years old. At that point, she was the most famous expressionist female painter in the world, period.
Yes.
And I had an argument with her over the justification and use for communism. And I studied communism and talked to communists before. And I considered what they had to say important. Some of the aspects, some of the things that they said is important. But ultimately, their goal wasn't successful in any of its experiments, therefore I sort of discarded it. Also, what I disliked about it was there's not a belief in spirituality or God. I don't believe, and I never have, that human beings are merely flesh and blood.
Right.
I don't believe that's true at all.
Right.
I believe there was a Christ and there is a God and there is an order to that. And to some extent, I think that you must come to terms with that. I don't believe in atheism or anything like that. I don't even think atheism or agnosticism is intelligent when you come right down to it. Because you have to take into consideration that we have tremendous limitations in terms of being human beings. We have limited lifespan, we have limited senses, we have limited talents. And with those limited talents, you try to judge what's going on in the entire universe? I don't think so. I think we have limited capabilities. Some have a little more in depth than some others, and some don't. But by and large, yes, I certainly do have a strong belief in spirituality and God, and that is a huge difference. Believe me, if you give me a room with 100 political artists, I'll probably, I almost guarantee, I will probably be the only one
The only one.
who will say that. It certainly is God-fearing.
Wow. Okay.
So obviously I've looked at some of your work and it does have a strong, iconic, symbolic, religious
Certainly.
undertone, not even an undertone. But what makes you, why are you a political artist?
Because I think, for a number of reasons. One, oddly or for good or bad, my work is taken by this world as treasure. It documents what I think. And fortunately or unfortunately, the world as it is sees my world, believe it or not, as treasure. I'm in a lot of museums, for example, right? It documents the way I feel right now. So further generations will know that people were cognizant of social and political problems at their time. It documents it forever. Nobody can take that away. You can't go breaking into the DeYoung and smash up my work. Heck, you'd have one hell of a time. That's why, in a sense, it's important that certainly political artists become permanent.
Right. That answers my next question, sort of, which was basically, and this is a concern I have with a lot of political art, which is it something the future can wrap their hands around?
But there's a big fault of artists as well. There's a lot of foolish artists out there, and that's why I don't get along too well with some of these artists, that somehow think that everything they produce is important. I guarantee you it's not important. It's not important at all. It never was important, never will be important. But it'll reconfirm with people that believe the same. It will reconfirm their feelings and justifications for doing right.
Okay.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, so it, like for example, if you see a piece that I do that's a protest against poverty, it reinforces what you think about that. And also what's important is you can't sit on the artwork. You have to publish it, you have to put it on the internet, you have to
Right.
distribute the image as much as possible, or it's not effective.
Right.
There's a lot of artists out there who are arrogant.
Yeah.
Some people think I'm arrogant, but I'm not. That's the big I'm not arrogant. I'm self-confident. There's a huge difference.
There is, but
And
there's
that's-
a very thin line.
Yeah, but it's a very thin line, but things I'm not arrogant. You don't even know what I do for my living. For my living for
Right.
the past, how many, 10, 20 years, you know what I've done? I work for Catholic Charities Incorporated of San Francisco.
Right.
I've helped, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds, if not hundreds and hundreds, of families out of deep poverty. I do that all the time, and I know how to do that. I do
Right.
that through employment and labor.
I was just thinking, what it brought up is, do you like the people who are not the choir that you sing to? You know what I mean? The people that look at poverty and go, they should pull themselves up by their
My
bootstraps.
There's some truth with
And
that.
do you feel that your art can awaken those people into seeing something different?
To some small extent, it can.
Okay.
But to a larger extent, to be honest with you, you're better off going out there, getting a job, learning a skill, and pulling yourself up. Because the government sure isn't going to do it.
Right.
And the government we have now sure isn't going to do it.
Right.
And a piece of work or poetry is not going to do it. I guarantee that. But interestingly enough, that's where there's two categories of art. I'm going to be a little more complicated with you. The visual arts in terms of sculpture, graphics, painting, and that sort of stuff is less important and powerful in 2008 than the modern media is. These are two junctures of art. The modern media, for example, this video,
Right.
is much more powerful than any painting Pablo Picasso has produced.
Right.
Because it can be seen by more people, it can be manipulated by more, and the message can be, strewn across, I don't know how many webcams across the world in an instant.
Right.
So again, with that question, I want to know what kind of message are you hoping to deliver to your audience?
Well, first of all,
If there is a specific message.
there's a message. First of all, self-awareness. Where am I? How am I getting to be? I want to be a little crude here.
Right.
How am I getting screwed in all this?
Right.
Like, for example, we're middle class here.
Right.
Believe me, look at the stock market lately. Look at the
Right.
wars that I'm paying for.
Right.
So
Yeah.
you have to. The first thing I want them to realize is self-realization.
Okay.
Hey, you know what? Things ain't all this rosy in Disneyland, United States.
Right.
You have this. I'm not going to even say George Bush twice because I don't want to just scare people around adversity. The second message, which is extremely important, is there is hope. There is beauty in the world. There is room for change, and you can make change. That is true. And also, something else, there is life after death.
Okay. Because I was just gonna say, is your because when you just said that, the idea that I got was basically self-awareness through religion.
Well, it could be through religion, it could be through a number of different things. I mean, everyone is created a little bit differently. Some people find it through art, some people find it through singing, some people find religion through music.
Okay.
However you do. I mean, what I choose in my path, in my way, may not necessarily be the other.
Right.
Religious belief may have something to do with the way I see it,
Right.
but I may meet Joe Blow who may have something or else, or somebody else who is a scientist or a mathematician who may see another pattern.
Right. I'm gonna